They say the fifth rejection is the one that kills you, not the body, the soul. Elara Voss knew this as she stood in the claiming circle, watching the last unmated wolf choose someone else. Anyone else. The silence that followed wasn't just absence of sound. It was the death of hope. Her mother wouldn't meet her eyes. Her father turned his back. And when the pack elder spoke the words that would exile her forever, Elara felt something inside her crack open. Not broken. Transformed. Because sometimes, when the world decides you're nothing, you have to become everything. Stay with us until the end to see how she rises. And don't forget to like and comment with your city. The claiming ceremony always smelled like pine smoke and desperation. Elara stood at the edge of the circle, her bare feet numb against the frozen ground, watching the bonfire throw shadows across faces she'd known her entire life. 23 years old, and this was her fifth ceremony, her last ceremony. Pack law was absolute. 5 rejections, and you were nothing. Not Omega, not even outcast. Just gone. She'd worn her mother's ceremonial dress, the deep red one that was supposed to bring luck. It hung loose on her frame now. She'd stopped eating 3 days ago, though whether from nerves or some subconscious preparation for what was coming, she couldn't say. Matthias Crane. The pack elder's voice cut through the night. Make your choice. Matthias was the last unmated male. Broad-shouldered, average intelligence, decent hunter, nothing special. Which made what happened next so much worse. He walked the circle slowly, his eyes passing over Elara like she was a stone in his path. Paused at Sarah Moss, pretty, weak-willed Sarah, who couldn't track a deer if it left a blood trail, and extended his hand. I choose Sarah Moss. The sound Sarah made was somewhere between a gasp and a sob. Relief, probably. She'd only been rejected twice. Elara didn't move, didn't breathe, just watched as Matthias led Sarah to the center of the circle where the others stood with their chosen mates, their future secure, their worth confirmed. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of judgment, pity, disgust, full of everything except the one thing Elara had spent 5 years desperately seeking: acceptance. Elder Tormund stepped forward. He was old enough to remember the last wolf who'd been rejected 5 times. They'd found her body 3 months later, frozen in a ravine, or what the scavengers had left of it. Elara Voss. His voice was formal, distant. You have been presented at 5 claiming ceremonies. 5 times you have been rejected. By the ancient laws of our pack, you are hereby— Wait. Every head turned. Elara's mother, Iris, stepped into the firelight. For one wild, impossible moment, Elara thought, she has disgraced this family long enough. Iris's voice was steady, matter of fact, like she was discussing the weather. We formally renounce her. The Voss bloodline does not claim her as kin. Elara's father, Marcus, stood beside his mate, said nothing, didn't have to. His silence was agreement enough. Her younger sister, Naya, stood behind them. Naya, who Elara had taught to hunt, whose nightmares Elara had chased away when they were children. Naya, who was staring at the ground like the frozen dirt was the most fascinating thing she'd ever seen. Very well. Tormund's expression didn't change. Elara Voss, who is no longer Voss, you are cast out. You have until dawn to leave pack territory. Any who aid you will share your fate. That was it. 23 years reduced to 3 sentences. The circle broke apart. Wolves moved toward their homes, their mates, their warm beds and full bellies. Nobody looked at Elara. She might as well have already disappeared. She stood there as the bonfire burned down to embers, as the cold seeped through her mother's dress. No, not her mother's anymore. As her feet went from numb to painful to numb again. When the last wolf had gone inside, when the only sound was wind through pine trees, Elara finally moved. Not toward the homes she'd known all her life. Toward the forest. Toward the wild lands beyond pack territory, where unclaimed wolves went to die. She didn't pack anything. Didn't say goodbye. What would she say? To whom? The tree line swallowed her whole. 3 days later. Hunger wasn't the worst part. Elara had gone hungry before, during lean winters when the pack had to ration. The cold wasn't the worst part either, though her mother's ceremonial dress was about as useful as tissue paper against the mountain wind. The worst part was the silence. In pack territory, there was always noise. Wolves calling to each other, children playing. The constant hum of life lived together. Out here, the silence was so complete it felt like pressure against her eardrums. Elara sat with her back against a boulder, trying to stop shivering long enough to think. She'd managed to catch a rabbit 2 days ago, barely. Her wolf was weak from years of poor nutrition and stress. The rabbit had lasted less than a day. Now she was out of options, out of energy, out of everything. The snow had started an hour ago. Light at first, then heavier, already accumulating on her shoulders, in her hair. The temperature was dropping. She should get up, find shelter, make a fire somehow, though she'd lost the flint she'd stolen from an abandoned hunter's cache. She should do a lot of things. Instead, she closed her eyes. Maybe her mother was right. Maybe some wolves just weren't meant to survive. The growl brought her back, low, deep, close. Alara's eyes snapped open. She didn't see anything at first, just snow and shadows and the skeletal remains of winter trees. Then the shadows moved, 3 of them. No, 4. Wolves, but not pack. Rogues. The kind that haunted the no man's land between territories, feeding on whatever they could kill. And she smelled like prey. The largest one stepped into view first. Mangy gray coat, ribs showing, eyes that held nothing but hunger. The others flanked him, spreading out in a practiced formation. Elara tried to stand, her legs buckled. 3 days without real food, 2 nights without sleep, and a lifetime of being told she was worthless. Her body had finally decided to agree. She fell hard, hands scraping against frozen ground. The gray wolf's lips pulled back, revealing yellow teeth. This was it, then. Not exile, not starvation. Torn apart by rogues in the middle of nowhere, her body left for scavengers. Not even a decent end. The gray wolf lunged, then stopped. Just stopped, mid-leap, like it had hit an invisible wall. Hung there for a moment, eyes wide with something that looked like shock. Then collapsed, twitching. The other rogues scattered instantly, disappearing into the snow like they'd never been there. Elara stared at the dying wolf, not understanding. Then she caught the scent. Pine. Steel. Something wild and dangerous that made every instinct she had scream, run. Pathetic. The voice came from behind her. Deep, cold, utterly unimpressed. Elara turned, too fast. The world spun, and saw him. He was tall. That was her first coherent thought. Tall and broad and absolutely still in a way that predators are still before they strike. His hair was dark, pulled back from a face that looked carved from granite. Hard angles, harder eyes. Those eyes were fixed on her with the kind of attention that made her feel like prey all over again. Please. Her voice came out as a rasp. I'm not. You're dying. He said it like he was commenting on the weather, stating a fact. Another hour, maybe 2. Blood loss, exposure, or those rogues' friends would have finished it. But first. He walked closer. Each step was absolutely silent, despite his size. He crouched in front of her, and Elara saw the knife in his hand, still dripping with the gray wolf's blood. I'm going to ask you one question, he said. Answer honestly, or I'll leave you here. Understand? Elara nodded, didn't trust her voice. Why are you in my territory? His territory? Elara's mind struggled to process that. This was unclaimed land. Wild land. No pack. Oh, the stories, the ones the mothers told to scare children into good behavior. About the outcasts who'd banded together in the deep wild, who answered to no pack law, who were led by an alpha so brutal, so absolutely savage, that even the strongest packs gave his territory a wide berth. Kael Draven. She was looking at Kael Draven. I was exiled, she managed. 5 rejections. I didn't know. I wasn't trying to... 5 rejections. Something flickered in his expression. Not sympathy. More like recognition. What's your name? Elara. Elara Vo... She stopped. Just Elara. He studied her for a long moment. She could feel him taking inventory. The dress that was basically rags now. The scratches on her arms from running blind through undergrowth, the way she was shaking so hard her teeth chattered. "You have two choices," he said finally. "Die here or come with me." "Come with you where?" "My stronghold." "And then what?" His smile was sharp, predatory. "And then we see if you're worth keeping." It wasn't a rescue. It wasn't even kindness. It was a challenge, and they both knew it. But it was more than anyone else had offered her in 5 years. "I'll come," Elara said. Kale stood, didn't offer her a hand, just started walking, expecting her to follow. Elara pushed herself to her feet. Her legs threatened to give out again, but she locked her knees, set her jaw, and took a step, then another. She didn't look back at the dead rogue, didn't think about what might have happened if Kyle hadn't shown up. Just focused on putting one foot in front of the other, on not falling, on not showing weakness, even though every cell in her body was screaming that following this man was possibly stupider than facing the rogues. They walked for hours, or maybe minutes. Time got strange when you were this cold, this tired, this close to collapse. The snow kept falling. Elara's dress was soaked through, frozen in places. Each breath hurt. Kyle never looked back, never slowed, just kept that steady, relentless pace that suggested he could walk forever and never get tired. Elara fell twice. Both times she got back up before he could notice, before he could change his mind and leave her. When the stronghold appeared through the trees, her first thought was that she was hallucinating. It was massive. Not a cluster of homes like pack territory, but an actual fortress. Stone walls that had to be 15 feet high, watchtowers at each corner, a gate made from what looked like solid iron, and guards. At least a dozen visible, more probably hidden, all of them radiating the kind of controlled violence that made Elara's wolf whimper and try to hide. Kyle walked straight up to the gate. It opened before he reached it. Someone had been watching their approach. The courtyard inside was chaos. Wolves everywhere, but not the comfortable chaos of pack life. This was purposeful, disciplined, groups sparring in the snow, others doing some kind of training drill that looked designed to break bones. Everyone moving with the efficiency of soldiers. They all stopped when Kyle entered. Every single one. Just stopped mid-motion and stared. Not at him. At her. "Back to work," Kyle said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried. Absolute authority. Absolute expectation of obedience. They obeyed. Instantly. Though Elara could feel their eyes following her as Kyle led her across the courtyard toward the largest building. Inside was warmer. Not much, but enough that feeling started returning to Elara's fingers, which meant the pain started too. Kyle led her down a corridor and stopped at a heavy wooden door, pushed it open. "You'll stay here," he said. "There's a bathroom through there. Clean yourself up. Someone will bring food and clothes." "Thank you," Elara started, but he was already turning away. "Don't thank me yet." He left. The door closed behind him with a solid thunk. Elara stood alone in the room, dripping melting snow onto stone floors, and tried to process what had just happened. The room was sparse, a bed, a table, a chair, no decoration, no warmth, but it had walls, a roof. After 3 days in the wild, it felt like luxury. She made it to the bed before her legs gave out, collapsed onto it, dress and all, and just breathed. She'd survived. Against absolutely everything, she'd survived. The question was, for how long? Yeet. The knock came maybe an hour later. Elara had managed to peel off the wet dress and wrap herself in the rough blanket from the bed. She hadn't made it to the bathroom yet. Standing up seemed ambitious. "Come in," she called. The woman who entered was built like a weapon, tall, muscular, with scars on her arms that spoke of serious fights. Her dark hair was cropped short, and her eyes were the color of amber. She carried a tray of food in one hand and a bundle of clothes in the other. She took one look at Elara and snorted. "So, you're the charity case?" Elara straightened. "I'm not 5 rejections." The woman set the tray down on the table with more force than necessary. "Kyle told us. You know what that makes you here? A liability." "I didn't ask to be here." "No?" The woman's smile was sharp. "Then leave. Doors that way. Nobody's stopping you." Elara opened her mouth. closed it. Because what could she say? That she'd die if she left? That she had nowhere else to go? All true and all pathetic. The woman's expression shifted slightly. Still hard, but maybe with the edge of something else. Respect? No, too strong a word. But acknowledgement, maybe. Name's Vera, she said. I run combat training here. You want to survive in this place? You'll be seeing a lot of me. She dropped the bundle of clothes on the bed. Eat, sleep. Tomorrow morning you start proving you're worth the air you breathe. What happens if I can't prove it? Vera's smile went cold. Then you're back out there, and this time Kyle won't be around to save you. She left without another word. Elara looked at the food. Stew, from the smell of it. Bread, water. More than she'd seen in days. Her stomach growled, but she ignored it long enough to examine the clothes Vera had left. Simple. Practical. Pants, shirt, boots that actually looked like they'd fit. Nothing like the ceremonial dress that had gotten her through 5 humiliations. She should eat, should sleep, should prepare for whatever test they were going to throw at her tomorrow. Instead, she found herself at the small window looking out at the courtyard. Even in the dark, wolves were training, pushing themselves, getting stronger. While she'd been waiting to be chosen, they'd been choosing themselves. The thought stung, but it also clarified something. She'd spent 5 years trying to be worth choosing. Trying to be good enough, strong enough, whatever enough to make someone, anyone, decide she deserved to exist. What if she stopped trying to be chosen? What if she just was? Elara turned from the window, picked up the bowl of stew, ate slowly, methodically, making sure her starved stomach could handle it. Then she stripped out of the blanket, put on the new clothes, and lay down on the bed. Tomorrow, they'd test her. Try to break her, probably. Show her all the ways she didn't belong here either. Let them. She'd been broken before. 5 times before, to be exact. This time, she wouldn't wait for permission to put herself back together. But dawn came too early. Elara jerked awake to someone pounding on her door. Disoriented, she scrambled up, every muscle protesting. She'd forgotten what it felt like to sleep somewhere warm. Her body had apparently decided to make up for 3 days of constant vigilance by going completely limp. You've got 5 minutes, Vera's voice called through the door. Courtyard, don't be late. Elara splashed water on her face from the basin in the bathroom, dragged her fingers through her tangled hair, and pulled on the boots. They fit. Barely, but they fit. The courtyard was already full when she emerged. At least 50 wolves, maybe more, assembled in neat rows. All of them looked at her when she appeared. None of them looked friendly. Vera stood at the front, arms crossed. You're late. You said 5 minutes. It's been 4. If you're not early, you're late. Vera's eyes were cold. First lesson. Time doesn't bend for you here. You bend for it. Understood? Elara nodded. I didn't hear you. Understood, Elara said louder. Better. Vera gestured to the end of the last row. Fall in. Elara moved to the indicated spot. The wolf next to her, a massive man with a shaved head and shoulders like a mountain, leaned over slightly. Try to keep up. Reject, he whispered. Before Elara could respond, Vera started barking orders. 5-mile run. Full pace. Anyone who falls behind does it again. Move! The group exploded into motion. Elara barely had time to process what was happening before bodies were flowing past her, out the gate, into the pre-dawn darkness. She ran. Her body screamed immediately. 3 days of starvation, exposure, and stress had left her with nothing. Her legs felt like lead. Her lungs burned. Every breath was a battle. Within the first mile, she was dead last. The massive man who'd called her a reject lapped her, laughed as he passed. Elara kept running. By the 3rd mile, her vision was tunneling. Black spots danced at the edges. Her wolf was whimpering, begging her to stop, to shift, to do anything but keep this suicidal pace. She kept running. 4th mile, she fell, hands and knees in the snow, gasping, tasting blood. Got back up, kept running. When she finally stumbled back through the gate, alone, the others already finished and watching, Vera was waiting. Pathetic, Vera said. Again. Elara stared at her. What? You fell behind. I said anyone who falls behind does it again. So, again, I can't then die. Vera's voice was flat. Because that's your other option. Run or die. Choose. Elara's legs were shaking so hard she could barely stand. Her heart was hammering against her ribs like it was trying to escape. Every rational part of her brain was screaming that this was impossible. She started running, made it maybe half a mile before she collapsed again. This time, she didn't get up right away. Just lay there in the snow, lungs heaving, and seriously considered Vera's other option. Dying would be easier. But she'd die knowing they were right. All of them. Her pack, her family, these strangers, all right about her being nothing. Elara pushed herself to her knees, then her feet, started running again. She didn't make it another mile before collapsing. Didn't get up the third time. Just lay there, consciousness flickering, aware dimly of footsteps approaching. Enough! Not Vera's voice. Kael's. Elara forced her eyes open. He was standing over her, expression unreadable. She failed the test, Vera said from somewhere behind him. She doesn't belong here. The test, Kael said slowly, was to see if she'd quit. She didn't quit. He crouched down, looked at Elara with those hard, dark eyes. You're weak, he said, untrained. You've been soft your entire life, waiting for someone to hand you worth like it's a gift. That ends now. Here. You earn everything, every breath, every meal, every moment you're allowed to exist in this place. There is no mercy, no second chances. No one will coddle you or tell you it's okay that you're struggling. You will suffer, you will bleed, you will break. And when you do, you will put yourself back together or you will leave. Those are your options. Do you understand? Elara wanted to say something brave, something defiant. Instead, what came out was, "Why did you bring me here?" For a moment she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "Because I've seen that look before. In the mirror, and I know what it takes to survive it." He stood. "Get up." "I can't." "Yes, you can. Get up." Elara tried. Her body didn't respond. Too much. She'd pushed too far. Kael looked at Vera. "Take her to the infirmary. Let her recover. Tomorrow, she starts again." "She'll just fail again," Vera said. "Probably." Kael turned to walk away, then paused. "But she'll fail one less time than today, and the day after that, one less than tomorrow. Eventually." He didn't finish the sentence, just walked away, back to whatever duties consumed the alpha of a stronghold full of outcasts. Vera muttered something that sounded like a curse. But she bent down, hauled Elara up with surprising gentleness, and half-carried her to a building on the far side of the courtyard. The infirmary was warm, quiet. A healer, an older woman with kind eyes and steady hands, examined Elara without comment, gave her something that tasted like dirt but stopped the shaking, fed her broth that she could actually keep down. "Rest," the healer said. "You've got at least 12 hours before they'll let you out. Use them." Elara did, fell into sleep so deep it was almost like death, and woke to find it dark outside and her body stiff but marginally functional. A new tray of food waited on the table beside the bed. She ate mechanically, mind elsewhere. Tomorrow, she'd have to do it again. Run until she collapsed, probably. Train until she broke. Face down every doubt, every fear, every voice in her head that said she wasn't strong enough. And the day after that. And the day after that. Until she was strong enough. Or dead. Elara finished the food, lay back down, closed her eyes. Somewhere in the stronghold, someone was training. She could hear the impact of fists on heavy bags, the grunt of effort, the constant drive to be better. She'd join them, soon, but first she had to survive tonight. The next morning came with bruises. Elara woke to find her entire body a canvas of purple and yellow. Every movement sent sharp reminders through her muscles. "You failed," they said. "You weren't good enough." She got up anyway. The healer was already awake, grinding something in a mortar. She looked up when Elara swung her legs off the bed. "You should rest another day," the healer said. "Can't. Can't or won't. Does it matter?" The healer's expression shifted, something that might have been approval. She crossed to a cabinet, pulled out a small jar. Rub this on the worst spots. Won't stop the pain, but it'll help you move. Elara took it. Thank you. Don't thank me. I'll be seeing you again soon. Not a prediction, a certainty. The courtyard was already full when Elara limped out. Dawn barely breaking, and they were all there. Running drills, sparring, pushing themselves like yesterday's training had been a warm-up. Vera spotted her immediately. You're late again. I was in the infirmary. I don't care if you were dead. When I say dawn, I mean dawn. Vera walked closer, studying Elara like she was evaluating livestock. You look like hell. Feel worse. Good. Means yesterday actually affected you. Vera turned to address the group. Everyone, this is Elara, 5-time reject from a cushy pack who thought showing up was the same as earning respect. She's going to train with us. Most of you think she'll be gone in a week. Prove yourselves right. The hostility in the air was immediate. These weren't soft pack wolves who'd spent their lives in comfortable hierarchies. These were fighters, survivors. Every single one had clawed their way here from nothing, and she was an insult to that struggle. Pair drills, Vera barked. Hendrix, you're with the reject. The massive man from yesterday, Hendrix, grinned. It wasn't friendly. This'll be fun. They moved to an open area of the courtyard. Around them, other pairs were already engaging, grappling, striking, moving with a fluidity that spoke of years of practice. Hendrix didn't bother with instruction, just came at her. Elara barely got her hands up before his fist connected with her ribs. The impact drove the air from her lungs, sent her stumbling back. Come on, reject, Hendrix taunted. Fight back. She tried. Threw a clumsy punch that he batted away like it was nothing. His counterstrike caught her in the shoulder, spun her around. She hit the ground hard. Pathetic, someone called from the watching crowd. Elara pushed herself up, tasted blood. She'd bitten her tongue on the landing. Hendrix waited, bouncing slightly on the balls of his feet. Ready for more? She wasn't, but she raised her fists anyway. This time she saw the punch coming, tried to dodge. Wasn't nearly fast enough. His knuckles caught her cheekbone, snapped her head to the side. Down again. The jeers were louder now, laughter. Bets being placed on how many times she'd hit the dirt before she gave up. Get up, Vera called. No sympathy in her voice. Just expectation. Elara got up. Hendrix's next strike, she managed to partially block. It still hurt, felt like her forearm cracked, but she stayed on her feet. Progress. His follow-up swept her legs. She crashed down for the third time in as many minutes. Enough! Kyle's voice cut through the noise. The entire courtyard went silent. Elara looked up to find him standing at the edge of the training area, arms crossed, expression unreadable. She's had enough, Hendrix said. 5 more seconds and I was going to have to carry her back to the infirmary. She's standing, Kael said. That means she hasn't had enough. He looked at Vera. Switch the pairs. Put her with someone who'll actually teach instead of just beating the hell out of her. Hendrix's jaw tightened, but he stepped back. Vera looked annoyed. She needs to learn what real combat feels like. She needs to learn how to stand first. Kael's tone didn't invite argument. Marcus, you're up. A lean wolf with graying hair stepped forward, older than most here, maybe 50, with scars that suggested he'd earned every year the hard way. Alpha, Marcus said, nodding. Kael left without another word. The crowd dispersed, returning to their own drills with obvious disappointment. The entertainment was over. Marcus studied Elara for a long moment. You know anything about fighting? No. Honest, that's something. He moved into a basic stance. Copy this. Elara tried. Her battered body protested every movement, but she managed a rough approximation. Feet wider, weight centered, hands up. Protect your face, not your chest. Your face is what guides you. Lose that. You lose everything. She adjusted. Better. Now I'm going to come at you slow. Don't try to hit me. Just practice moving, getting out of the way. Speed comes later. First, you learn to survive. They drilled for an hour. Marcus was patient in a way that felt almost cruel, because his patience highlighted exactly how far behind she was. Every movement he made was economical, precise. Every movement she made was wasted energy, poor form, desperation. But he corrected her, again and again, without judgment, just observation and instruction. "You're thinking too much," he said finally. "Your body knows how to move. You just have to let it. My body wants to collapse." Then collapse after training. He stepped back. "That's enough for today. You did better than I expected." "I didn't land a single hit." You stayed on your feet. That's the first lesson." Marcus glanced toward the main building where KL had disappeared. "The Alpha doesn't give second chances often. Don't waste this one." He walked away, leaving Elara alone in the courtyard. She looked down at her hands. They were shaking, adrenaline wearing off probably, or shock, or the simple reality that she'd just been beaten down by someone going easy on her. "Hey, reject." Elara turned. A young woman approached, maybe 20, with auburn hair and suspicious eyes. She wasn't as built as Vera, but moved with the same predatory grace. "Name's Senna," the woman said. "I'm supposed to show you where the mess hall is. Vera's orders. I can find it myself." "Wasn't a question." Senna started walking. "Come on, you look like you're about to pass out, and I don't feel like carrying you." The mess hall was loud and crowded, long tables filled with wolves eating, arguing, laughing. The noise hit Elara like a physical thing after the focused silence of training. Senna grabbed 2 bowls from a serving station, thrust one at Elara. "Eat, you'll need it." They found seats at the end of a table. The conversations around them died immediately. Wolves stared, then deliberately turned away. The message was clear. She wasn't welcome. Senna seemed unbothered. Just ate her food, occasionally glancing at Elara like she was a puzzle to solve. "Why are you being nice to me?" Elara asked finally. "Who said I'm being nice?" "Vera told me to make sure you don't starve. That's all." "Still, you could have just pointed me here and left." Senna shrugged. "Could have. Didn't." She paused. "You know why most people here hate you?" "Because I'm weak?" "No, because you had something they didn't." Senna's voice was quiet but intense. "A pack, a family, a chance to belong without fighting for every scrap of it. And you lost it. To them, that's not tragedy. It's waste." Elara set down her spoon. Suddenly, the food tasted like ash. "I didn't ask to be rejected 5 times. Maybe not. But you accepted it. Waited around for someone to choose you instead of choosing yourself." Senna leaned back. "That's what they can't forgive. Not that you failed, that you were passive about it. And you, what do you think?" "I think you're here now. What you were doesn't matter as much as what you become." Senna stood. "Finish eating. Afternoon session starts in 20 minutes. You'll want fuel." She left before Elara could respond. The afternoon was worse than the morning. Vera had them running obstacle courses, climbing walls, crawling under barriers, jumping gaps that seemed designed to break ankles. Elara failed most of them, fell more times than she could count. Each time she got back up to jeers and muttered insults. By sunset, she could barely walk. The healer took one look at her and sighed. "Didn't use the salve." "Did you?" "Forgot. Liar. You didn't want to seem weak." The healer, her name was Margot, Elara had learned, guided her to a bed. "Pride's going to get you killed here faster than incompetence." "Noted." Margot worked in silence for a while, applying poultices and wrapping the worst injuries. Finally, "You know what they're doing, right? Breaking me? Testing you. Every person in this stronghold went through something similar. Kael doesn't accept weakness, but he also doesn't accept quitters. They're waiting to see which one you are." "What if I'm both?" Margot smiled slightly. "Then you leave. Simple as that." She stepped back. "You've got the night. Use it to decide if you're staying." Elara lay in the infirmary bed, staring at the ceiling, and tried to figure out what she was doing here. A week ago, she'd been in pack territory. Safe, if miserable, waiting for a miracle that never came. Now she was in a stronghold full of wolves who hated her, training under an alpha who showed no emotion except vague disdain, pushing her body past every reasonable limit. And somehow, despite everything, she didn't want to leave. Because for the first time in 5 years, no one was telling her to wait, to be patient, to hope someone would see her value. Here, value wasn't given, it was taken. She fell asleep with that thought and woke before dawn with a decision made. The courtyard was empty when she arrived, truly empty, for once. Pre-dawn darkness, no one else awake yet. Elara walked to the center of the training area. The obstacle course loomed in front of her, walls she couldn't climb, barriers she couldn't clear, gaps she couldn't jump. She started anyway. The first wall defeated her immediately. She got maybe 3 feet up before her arms gave out, sent her crashing back to frozen ground. She tried again, and again. On the 7th attempt, she made it to the top. Barely. Her arms were screaming, her shoulders felt like they'd been torn from their sockets, but she hauled herself over and dropped to the other side. The barrier was next, a low crawl under mesh wire. She'd gotten tangled in it yesterday, had to be pulled out by a laughing Hendrix. This time she went slow. Methodical. Kept her body low, her movements controlled. Made it through. The gap was impossible. 6 feet across, nothing but air and a hard landing if she missed. Elara backed up, ran, jumped, didn't make it, hit the edge, scrambled for purchase, fell. The impact knocked the wind out of her. She lay there, gasping, and heard footsteps. Interesting. She looked up to find Kyle standing over her. He was dressed for training, no shirt despite the cold, pants, boots. His body was a map of scars. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Training. Training starts at dawn. Then I'm early." Something flickered in his expression. Not quite a smile, but close. "You won't make that jump, not yet. Your legs aren't strong enough." "I know. Then why try?" Elara pushed herself to sitting. "Because eventually they will be, and I need to know what it feels like to fail now so I know what success feels like later." Kyle studied her for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he offered his hand. She took it. He pulled her up easily, like she weighed nothing. "You're still weak," he said. "Still untrained. Still exactly what they think you are. I know. But you're here. At dawn. Training when no one's watching, no one forcing you." He released her hand. "That's the first real thing you've done since arriving. What's the second? Surviving what comes next." He walked to the gap. "Watch." He backed up maybe 5 steps, ran, jumped, made it look effortless. "The jump isn't about strength," he said from the other side. "It's about commitment. You hesitated. Right before you left the ground, you second-guessed. That hesitation killed your momentum. I can't." "Yes, you can. Try again." Elara wanted to argue, wanted to explain that her body was already pushed past its limits, that she'd barely slept, that everything hurt. Instead, she backed up, ran, jumped, hesitated, fell. Kale crossed back over easily. "Again. Again." She tried, failed, tried again, failed again. On the 5th attempt, something shifted. Maybe exhaustion overrode her fear. Maybe she just stopped caring about the landing. She ran, jumped, didn't hesitate, flew, landed hard on the other side, stumbled, nearly went down, but stayed on her feet. Made it. Kyle nodded once. "Better. Now do it 9 more times." "What?" "You made it once. That was luck. Make it 10 times in a row. That's skill." He crossed his arms. "I'll wait." The next hour was torture. Elara made the jump 3 more times, failed twice, made it 4 more times. Her legs were jelly. Her lungs burned. Every landing sent shocks through her already battered body. But she kept trying. On the 10th successful jump, she collapsed on the far side. Couldn't get up. Just lay there, chest heaving. Kale walked over, looked down at her. "Good. Now you know what you're capable of when you stop making excuses." That wasn't excuses, that was survival instinct. Same thing, usually. He glanced toward the eastern sky, where dawn was starting to break. "Others will be here soon. You should clean up before they see you like this." "Why?" "Because if they know you've been training extra, they'll push harder, see if they can break you." He started to walk away, then paused. "And Elara, next time you want to train alone, come find me. You're doing it wrong. I made the jump. You made it 10 times. I can make it 100 without thinking. There's a difference. He left without waiting for a response. Elara lay there until she heard voices approaching, the early risers coming for morning drills. Then she forced herself up, limped back to the infirmary, and let Margot shake her head in resigned exasperation. You're going to kill yourself, Margot said. Maybe. That's not funny. Wasn't trying to be. Elara winced as Margot prodded a particularly bad bruise. How long until I'm actually good at this? Good? Months? Maybe years? Not dying immediately? You're already there, barely. It wasn't encouraging, but it was honest. The days blurred together after that. Training, eating, collapsing, repeat. Elara learned to block punches she couldn't see coming, learned to fall without breaking bones, learned the difference between pain that meant injury and pain that meant progress. She also learned the social hierarchy of the stronghold. Vera was second in command, Kael's enforcer, the one who made sure his orders were carried out. Cross her, you answered to him. Hendrix was the strongest fighter but not the smartest, loved proving his dominance, hated anything that challenged it. Marcus was the quiet backbone, trained the new arrivals, kept the peace, commanded respect through competence rather than fear. Senna was harder to pin down. She trained hard, kept to herself mostly, but Elara caught her watching sometimes, evaluating. And Kael was everywhere and nowhere. He'd appear during training, offer a correction, disappear again. Run the stronghold with absolute authority, but minimal visible effort. 2 weeks in, Elara made her first real mistake. It was during sparring. She'd been paired with a wolf named Darren. Middling skill, bad temper. He'd been riding her hard all session, throwing insults with every exchange. My grandmother hits harder than you, reject. Bet your old pack's glad you're gone. Probably celebrating. You know why you got rejected 5 times? Because even desperate wolves have standards. Elara had learned to ignore it. Let the words slide off. Focus on the technique, not the noise. But then Darren said, bet your mother was relieved. Finally got rid of her embarrassment. Something snapped. Elara stopped pulling her punches, went full force, caught Darren in the jaw with everything she had. His head snapped back. He staggered. Blood bloomed from a split lip. The courtyard went silent. Darren touched his mouth, looked at the blood on his fingers, smiled. Oh, now we're fighting for real? He came at her like a storm. No holding back, no training mindset, pure violence. Elara tried to defend. Wasn't fast enough, strong enough, skilled enough. His fist broke her nose. She felt it crunch, tasted blood flooding her mouth. His next strike caught her ribs. Something cracked. She went down hard. Darren didn't stop, kicked her while she was down. Once, twice. That's enough. Not Vera's voice, not Marcus's, Kael's. The kick that would have caught Elara's head never landed. Kael had Darren by the throat, lifted him off the ground like he weighed nothing. She hit me first, Darren choked out. I don't care. Kael's voice was ice. You lost control. In my stronghold, that's weakness. She's the weak one. Kael's grip tightened. Darren's words cut off with a strangled gasp. The weak one, Kael said slowly, is currently bleeding on the ground because she let emotion override training. But she's learning. You, apparently, are not. He dropped Darren, who collapsed, coughing. You're on wall duty for a month. Overnight shift, every night. Alpha, that's dismissed. Darren scrambled away. Kael turned to Elara. Get up. She tried. Her ribs screamed. The world tilted. I said get up. I can't. Yes, you can. His tone offered no sympathy. You got yourself into this. Get yourself out. Elara tasted blood and pride and failure, forced herself to her knees. Then her feet. Stood swaying, vision gray at the edges, but stood. Now go to the infirmary, Kael said. And next time someone insults you, remember this feeling. Ask yourself if it's worth bleeding for words. He walked away. Margot set her nose without comment, wrapped her ribs, gave her something for the pain. You're lucky he broke your nose and not your orbital bone, Margot said. That would have been surgery. Lucky, Elara repeated flatly. Yes, lucky. Darren's fought in actual wars. You're barely trained. You surviving that is luck. Margot's expression softened slightly. But for what it's worth, you landed that first hit clean. Half the stronghold's talking about it. What are they saying? That maybe the reject has teeth after all. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like she'd proven she could be just as stupid as anyone else. But when she returned to training 3 days later, ribs still wrapped, nose swollen and purple, the insults were quieter. The looks less dismissive. She'd bled in front of them. That meant something here. Senna approached her after that session. That was dumb. I know. But ballsy. Senna paused. Some of us are doing extra training tonight. Hand-to-hand, no sparring, just technique work. You want in? It was the first time anyone had invited her to anything. Yes, Elara said. That night, she met the others in a storage building on the edge of the compound. Maybe 8 wolves total, all younger, all clearly working to prove themselves. Senna led the session. She was brutal but fair, correcting form with the same merciless precision Kael used. They drilled for hours. By the end, Elara could barely lift her arms. Same time next week, Senna said. If you can keep up. Elara nodded, didn't trust her voice. Walking back across the dark courtyard, she saw Kael standing on the wall, watching. Their eyes met for a moment. He gave the smallest nod, then turned away. It wasn't approval, but it wasn't dismissal either. It was acknowledgement. And right now, that was enough. That acknowledgement carried Elara through the next month like fuel. She trained harder, slept less, pushed past every boundary her body tried to set. The extra sessions with Senna's group became regular, 3 nights a week, sometimes 4. Her technique improved. Not dramatically, but enough that she stopped being everyone's favorite punching bag. Enough that Hendrik stopped smiling when they paired up. It was 6 weeks into her time at the stronghold when everything changed. Elara was running morning drills. 5 miles now felt almost easy. Her body had adapted that much. When Vera called her out of formation. Alpha wants you, Vera said. No elaboration. Elara's stomach dropped. In 6 weeks, Kael had spoken to her maybe a dozen times, always brief, always corrections or observations, never summons. She followed Vera to the main hall, a massive stone structure that served as Kael's command center. Inside, a dozen wolves stood around a large table covered in maps. All of them were fighters Elara recognized, the strongest, the most experienced. Kael stood at the head of the table. He looked up when she entered. You wanted to see me? Elara said. How's your tracking? Kael asked without preamble. Decent. I grew up hunting. Decent isn't an answer. Can you follow a trail or not? Yes. Kael gestured to the map. We've got a problem. 3 of our supply runners went missing 4 days ago. Should have been back 2 days ago. We sent a search party yesterday. They found blood, signs of a fight, but no bodies. Rogues? Someone asked. Worse. Kael's expression was grim. The Blackwood Pack. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Elara had heard of the Blackwood Pack. Everyone had. They were brutal, organized, and they had a particular hatred for Kael's stronghold. They're escalating, Marcus said quietly. He'd been standing in the shadows, but stepped forward, now. 3 months ago, it was harassment at the borders. Now they're taking our people. They want a response, Vera said. They're baiting us. Then we give them one, Hendricks growled. Hit them hard. Show them what happens when they touch what's ours. That's exactly what they want, Marcus countered. We go in aggressive. We're fighting on their terms, in their territory. So we do nothing? Hendricks's voice was rising. Let them pick us off one by one. Enough! Kael's single word silenced them. We're not doing nothing, but we're also not rushing in blind. He looked at Elara. You know the terrain between here and Blackwood territory? Some of it. I came through the northern route. Good. You're coming with the tracking team. Elara blinked. What? You heard me. We need someone who knows how to read a trail without pack bias. Everyone else here thinks like a fighter first. You think like prey. He said it without insult, just fact. Sometimes that's more useful. I'm not ready for... I didn't ask if you were ready. I'm telling you you're going. Kale turned back to the map. Marcus leads, take Senna and 2 others. Light and fast. Find our people or find out what happened to them. You leave in an hour. Dismissed. Elara stood frozen for a moment. Then Vera grabbed her arm and steered her out. You look like you're about to pass out, Vera said. He's sending me into Blackwood territory. He's sending you to track. Big difference. Vera's grip tightened. Listen to me. Marcus is solid. Follow his lead, do what he says, and you'll probably survive. Probably. That's not reassuring. Wasn't meant to be. Vera released her. Get your gear, travel light, and Elara, don't do anything stupid. But an hour later, Elara stood at the gate with 4 others. Marcus, Senna, and 2 wolves she'd trained with but didn't know well. Cormac, a quiet tracker with sharp eyes, and Rhea, a fighter built like a blade. Marcus distributed weapons, gave Elara a knife. You know how to use this? He asked. Stabbing end goes in the other person. Close enough. He turned to the group. We move fast. We stay quiet. If we encounter Blackwood wolves, we do not engage unless absolutely necessary. Our job is information, not vengeance. Clear? Everyone nodded. They left through the north gate, moving at a pace that had Elara struggling within the first mile. Not running, but a ground-eating lope that ate distance without exhausting reserves. The terrain changed gradually. Forest gave way to rougher country, rocky hills, sparse trees, frozen streams. Harder to track through, harder to hide in. By midday, they'd reached the area where the supply runners had disappeared. Marcus held up a hand. They stopped. Cormac. Check for sign. Cormac moved forward carefully, studying the ground. After several minutes, he pointed. Blood here, drag marks. At least 2 bodies moved that direction. How old? Marcus asked. 3, maybe 4 days? Still fresh enough to follow? If they didn't cover their trail. Cormac moved ahead, reading the earth like text. They followed in silence. Elara tried to see what Cormac was seeing. Disturbed ground, broken branches, the small signs of passage. Some of it she caught. Most she missed. The trail led them into a ravine, steep sides, narrow floor. Perfect ambush terrain. Marcus stopped them before entering. I don't like this. It's the only way the trail goes, Cormac said. I know, that's why I don't like it. Marcus scanned the ridgeline. Senna, Rhea, take the high ground. Watch our backs. Anything moves, you signal. Don't engage. They split up. Senna and Rhea scrambled up the rocky slope with practiced ease. Marcus led Elara and Cormac into the ravine. The silence was oppressive. Even the wind seemed muted here. Halfway through, Cormac stopped. Pointed. Elara saw it. Scraps of fabric caught on rocks, dark stains on stone that could only be blood. They were killed here, Cormac said quietly. Where are the bodies? Elara asked. That's what I want to know. Marcus moved forward cautiously. They found the answer 50 yards farther in. 3 wolves, or what was left of them, dumped in a pile like garbage, left for scavengers. The smell hit Elara first, death and decay. Then the sight. She turned away, bile rising. Easy, Marcus said. His voice was gentle. First time seeing this. Elara nodded, not trusting her voice. Won't be the last if you stay here. He moved closer to the bodies, examining them with professional detachment. Killed quickly. Multiple attackers. This was an execution, not a fight. Why leave them like this? Elara managed. Message. They want us to find them. Want us angry. Marcus straightened. We need to... The howl cut him off. Not one. Multiple. Coming from the ridgeline, where Senna and Rhea had gone. Run! Marcus shouted. They bolted. Behind them more howls erupted. Hunting calls. Coordinated. Elara's lungs burned as they sprinted through the ravine. Her legs pumped, muscles she'd built over 6 weeks of brutal training finally proving their worth. They burst out of the ravine to find chaos. Senna and Rhea were fighting, outnumbered, surrounded by at least 8 Blackwood wolves, blood on the rocks. One of the Blackwood wolves was down, not moving. Marcus didn't hesitate. Shifted mid-stride, his wolf form massive and gray, and hit the nearest Blackwood fighter like a freight train. Cormac shifted and followed. Elara stood frozen for half a second. She was the weakest here, the least trained. If she shifted, she'd be more liability than help. But Senna was bleeding. Rhea was limping. Elara shifted. Her wolf was smaller than the others, weaker. But she'd learned something in 6 weeks of getting her ass handed to her daily. Size wasn't everything. She went for the legs, caught a Blackwood wolf mid-lunge at Rhea, teeth sinking into its hind leg. It yelped, stumbled. Rhea used the opening to tear into its throat. 2 more Blackwood wolves converged on Elara. She dodged the first, wasn't fast enough for the second. Teeth caught her shoulder, tore. Pain exploded white-hot. She twisted, snapped at exposed throat, missed. The Blackwood wolf had her pinned, jaws going for her neck. Then Marcus was there, pulling the attacker off, breaking its spine with a vicious shake. The fight was over in minutes. 4 Blackwood wolves dead. The others had fled. Elara shifted back, gasping. Her shoulder was a mess, deep gouges, bleeding freely. "How bad?" Marcus asked, human again. "I'm fine." "That's not what I asked." He examined the wound, face grim. "You can walk?" "Yes." "Then we move. Now, before they come back with reinforcements." The journey back to the stronghold was a blur of pain and adrenaline. Senna wrapped Elara's shoulder as best she could, but blood kept seeping through. They made it back by nightfall. Barely. Margot took one look at Elara and cursed. "What the hell happened?" "Blackwood ambush," Marcus said. He looked exhausted. Older. She took a hit protecting Rhea. "Get her on the table. Now!" The next hours were agony. Margot cleaned the wound, had to debride damaged tissue, stitched deeper than Elara thought possible. Gave her something for the pain that barely touched it. When it was finally done, Elara lay shaking on the infirmary bed. "You're lucky," Margot said. "Another inch and they'd have severed the artery. You would have bled out before getting back." "Lucky," Elara repeated, that word again. "Rest. You've earned it." But sleep wouldn't come. Every time Elara closed her eyes, she saw those bodies. Her packmates. No, not her pack. Kael's wolves. People she'd trained with. Dead and discarded like they meant nothing. She was still awake when Kael arrived. He entered without knocking, moving with that silent grace that always unnerved her. Looked at her shoulder, wrapped in clean bandages now. "Marcus told me what happened," he said. "I slowed them down." "You protected one of mine. That's not slowing down." He pulled up a chair, sat. "The Blackwood pack is making a move. This wasn't random. They're testing us, seeing how we respond." "What will you do?" "That's the question." Kael leaned back. "I could hit them hard, raid their territory, make them regret touching us. That's what Hendrix wants. What most of the stronghold wants. But that's what they want too. They're baiting us into a fight. And while we're focused on them, we're vulnerable to whoever else wants to test our strength." He looked at her. "What would you do?" Elara blinked. "Me?" "You. You've seen what I'm dealing with. What's your instinct?" "I'm not qualified to—" "I didn't ask about qualifications. I asked about instinct." Elara thought about it. About the bodies in the ravine, the coordinated ambush, the way the Blackwood wolves had fought. Skilled, but not desperate. This wasn't survival for them. It was strategy. "They want you angry," she said slowly. "Want you to make mistakes. So, don't be angry. Be cold. Hit them where they don't expect it. Make them react instead of you." Kael's expression didn't change. "And if that means casualties? If it means risking more of our people?" "Everything here is risk. You taught me that." Elara met his eyes. "The question isn't whether to risk. It's whether to risk smart or risk stupid." For a long moment, Kael just looked at her. Then he stood. "Rest. You'll need your strength." "For what?" "For what comes next." He headed for the door, then paused. "You did well today. Marcus said you didn't freeze when it mattered. That's rare for someone with your experience." "I was terrified. Being scared isn't weakness. Acting despite being scared, that's courage." He left without another word. Elara lay back, exhausted but still unable to sleep. Her shoulder throbbed with every heartbeat. But underneath the pain was something else. Pride. She'd been in a real fight, had protected someone, had earned, if not respect, then at least acknowledgement. She was still awake when Senna slipped into the infirmary hours later. "Shouldn't you be sleeping?" Elara asked. "Could ask you the same." Senna sat on the edge of the bed. "Heard you pulled a wolf off Rhea. Probably saved her life. Marcus saved mine right after. Still counts." Senna was quiet for a moment. "You know what people are saying? That I'm still useless? That the reject might actually survive here." Senna smiled slightly. "It's progress. Great, from definitely dying to possibly surviving. Hey, 6 weeks ago you couldn't run a mile without collapsing. Now you're tracking into hostile territory and fighting Blackwood wolves. That's not nothing." Elara wanted to feel good about that, but all she could think about were those bodies. They were dumped like trash, our wolves, people who probably had families, dreams, and the Blackwood pack just ended them. "That's the world we live in," Senna said quietly. "Out here, you're either strong enough to survive or you're not. There's no middle ground." "That's brutal." "Yeah, it is." Senna stood. "Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be intense. Kael's planning something, and when he plans something, we all feel it." She left Elara alone with her thoughts. The next morning, Kael called a full assembly. Every wolf in the stronghold gathered in the courtyard. Elara stood near the back, shoulders still bandaged, trying not to look as exhausted as she felt. Kael stood on the raised platform used for announcements. No notes, no preparation visible, just absolute authority. "Yesterday," he said, "the Blackwood pack killed 3 of ours. Today, I'm telling you how we respond." The crowd was silent, waiting. "We don't attack, not yet." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Hendricks looked ready to explode. "They want us angry, want us reckless, so we give them the opposite." Kael's voice cut through the noise. "We fortify. We train harder. We become stronger. And when they come, because they will come, we'll be ready. We'll make them bleed for every inch of ground. We'll show them that testing us was the last mistake they'll ever make." "That's cowardice," Hendricks shouted. Every head turned. Hendricks stepped forward, face red. "We sit here while they kill our people, while they laugh at us? That's not strength. That's fear." Kael's expression didn't change. "You think I'm afraid? I think you're going soft, making decisions to protect your pet project." Hendricks pointed at Elara. "Ever since you brought the reject here, you've been different, weaker." The courtyard went deadly quiet. Elara's stomach turned to ice. "You want to challenge my authority?" Kael asked. His voice was soft, dangerous. "I want to challenge you," Alpha writes. "The stronghold deserves a leader who'll actually fight." It was the nuclear option. Alpha challenges rarely happened, and when they did, they were brutal. Winner took everything. Loser usually died. Kael stepped down from the platform, walked slowly toward Hendricks. "You're sure?" he asked. "I'm sure." "Then we do this properly. Noon. The pit. Witnessed." Kael's eyes were cold as winter. "And Hendricks, when I'm done with you, everyone here will understand exactly why I lead." He walked away. The crowd erupted in chaos. Wolves arguing, placing bets, already choosing sides. Elara stood frozen. This was her fault. Hendricks had used her as the excuse to challenge Kael. Senna appeared at her elbow. "This isn't on you." He said, "He's been looking for an excuse for months. You're just the one he picked." Senna's face was grim. "But Elara, if Kael loses, and he won't, but if he does, run, immediately. Hendricks will kill you just to prove a point. What can I do?" "Stay out of the way. This is between alphas now." The morning crawled by. Elara tried to train, couldn't focus, tried to eat, couldn't swallow, just waited as noon approached like an execution. The pit was exactly what it sounded like. A circular depression in the ground, maybe 30 feet across. Steep sides. No weapons. No escape. By the time noon arrived, every wolf in the stronghold had gathered around it. Kael and Hendrix faced each other across the pit. "Last chance to withdraw," Kael said. "Go to hell." They both shifted. Kael's wolf was massive, black as night, with eyes that gleamed like ice. Hendrix was almost as large, gray, and scarred from a lifetime of fighting. They circled once, twice. Then Hendrix lunged. The fight was savage. Hendrix was strong, experienced, brutal. He fought like he had nothing to lose. But Kael fought like he'd already won. Every movement was precise, economical. When Hendrix attacked, Kael wasn't there. When Kael attacked, it was devastating. 5 minutes in, Hendrix was bleeding from a dozen wounds. 10 minutes in, he was limping. 15 minutes in, Kael had him pinned, jaws around Hendrix's throat. One bite and it would be over. The crowd was silent. Kael held that position for 10 seconds. 20. Making his point. Then released. Shifted back to human form. Stood over Hendrix's prone wolf. "You live because I allow it," Kael said. "But you're done here. Pack your things. You've got an hour. If you're still in my territory after that, I won't be merciful again." Hendrix shifted back, blood on his face, defeat in his eyes. "You're making a mistake," he said. "The mistake was yours. Now get out." Hendrix limped away. No one helped him. No one even looked at him. Exile. Worse than death in some ways. Kael turned to address the crowd. "Anyone else want to question my leadership?" Silence. "Good. Back to work." The crowd dispersed. But the energy had changed. Everyone moving with renewed purpose. Renewed fear. Elara started to leave, but Kael's voice stopped her. "Not you." She turned. He was covered in blood, most of it Hendrix's. His eyes were hard. "My quarters. Now." Her stomach dropped. But she followed. Kael's quarters were Spartan. No decoration. Just function. A desk covered in maps. A bed that looked unused. Weapons on the walls. He closed the door behind them. "Do you understand what you've done?" he asked. "I didn't." "You became visible. In a place where visibility is dangerous." He started pacing. Hendrix was a problem, yes. But he was a known problem. Now he's out there, humiliated, with nothing to lose. And he knows exactly where to find you. "I'm sorry." "Sorry doesn't keep you alive." Kael stopped in front of her. "You need to get stronger, faster, better, because the target you're wearing isn't going away." "Then teach me." He stared at her. "What?" "You said I'm doing it wrong, that I need to be better, so teach me." Elara stepped closer. "I'm tired of barely surviving, tired of being the weakness everyone exploits. You want me strong? Make me strong." "It won't be gentle." "I don't want gentle, I want effective." Kael studied her for a long moment, then nodded once. "Tomorrow, dawn, we start training, real training, the kind that breaks people." His expression was hard. "And Elara, when you're crying and bleeding and begging me to stop, I won't. So be sure this is what you want. I'm sure. Then get some rest. Tomorrow, you learn what pain actually feels like." She left his quarters with her heart pounding, not from fear, from anticipation. She'd been chosen for rejection 5 times, been cast out, been told she was worthless. Now she was choosing herself, and she was going to become someone those people could never have imagined. The sun was setting when she crossed the courtyard. Most wolves had finished training for the day, but Elara saw Senna and a few others still working. She joined them without asking. They trained until full dark, until her shoulder was screaming and her vision blurred with exhaustion. When she finally made it back to her room, not the infirmary anymore, Margot had released her to a small quarters of her own. She collapsed on the bed. Tomorrow would be worse. She knew that. But worse meant she was still here, still fighting, still becoming. Outside her window, wolves patrolled the walls. Preparing for the war everyone knew was coming. And somewhere in the darkness beyond the stronghold, Hendrix was nursing his wounds and planning revenge. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, it sharpened something inside her. Let him come. She'd be ready. Dawn came with pain. Elara woke to someone pounding on her door. not knocking, pounding, and stumbled up to find Kale already in the courtyard, waiting. No warm-up, no explanation, just a nod toward the training pit. "Get in," he said. She climbed down. The pit was empty except for the two of them. The rest of the stronghold was still sleeping or just waking. This was private, intentional. Kale jumped down effortlessly, stood across from her, arms loose at his sides. "Defense is a lie," he said. "There's only offense and counteroffense. You've been learning to block, to avoid, to survive. That ends now. Today you learn to hurt." I thought, stop thinking. That's your first problem. You analyze, you hesitate, you second guess. Your body knows what to do. You just won't let it. He moved forward. "Hit me." Elara blinked. "What?" "Hit me, as hard as you can." She threw a punch. He caught her wrist before it landed, twisted, had her face down in the dirt in half a second. "Again," he said, releasing her. She got up, threw another punch. Same result. "You're telegraphing. Your shoulder drops before you move. Every opponent with eyes will see it coming." He demonstrated, moving in slow motion. "Power comes from your core, not your arm. Rotate here. Drive through the target, not at it." They drilled for an hour. Every punch Elara threw, he countered, explained what she did wrong, made her do it again. Her shoulder, still healing from the Blackwood attack, screamed. She ignored it. "Better," Kyle said finally. "Still terrible, but better. Now we add movement." He came at her. Not full speed, but fast enough that Elara's brain couldn't keep up. She moved on instinct, blocked, dodged, tried to counter. He swept her legs. She crashed down. "You're rooted, moving like you're stuck in mud." He pulled her up. A fight isn't static, it flows. You flow with it, or you drown in it. They went again, and again. By the time the sun was fully up, Elara was bleeding from a split lip. Her knuckles were raw, and every muscle felt like it was on fire. "Enough," Kale said. "For now, same time tomorrow." "That's it?" "You want more?" He raised an eyebrow. "You can barely stand." "I can stand fine." "Prove it. Run the perimeter, full circuit. If you collapse, we do this again tonight instead of tomorrow morning." Elara wanted to argue, but she'd asked for this, demanded it. She ran, made it 3/4 of the way before her legs gave out. Hit the ground hard, tasted dirt and blood and failure. Kael appeared a moment later. Didn't help her up, just looked down. "Tonight then," he said. "After dinner. Don't be late." He walked away. Elara lay there for a few minutes, letting her heart rate settle, then forced herself up and limped to the mess hall. The room went quiet when she entered. Everyone staring at her split lip, her bruised face. She ignored them. Got food. Sat alone. Senna slid into the seat across from her a moment later. "You look like hell," Senna said. "Training with Kael." "Ah, that explains it." Senna studied her. "How bad?" "I'll live." "That's not what I asked." Elara set down her spoon. "It's brutal. Worse than anything Vera puts us through. But it's working. I can feel it." "Feel what?" "That I'm actually getting somewhere instead of just surviving." She touched her split lip, winced. "Even if getting somewhere means bleeding constantly." "The bleeding means you're pushing limits." Senna lowered her voice. "Word is Kael's never trained anyone personally before. Not like this." "What does that mean?" "It means people are noticing, and not all of them are happy about it." Before Elara could respond, Vera dropped into the seat beside them. "You two, with me, now." They followed her out to a quiet corner of the compound. Vera checked to make sure they were alone, then turned. "We've got a problem." Scouts spotted movement on the eastern border. Blackwood wolves. At least 20, maybe more. "That's a raiding party," Senna said. "Worse. That's an invasion force." Vera's expression was grim. "They're not testing anymore. They're coming for us." "When?" Elara asked. 2 days? 3 at most. Vera looked at Elara directly. "Kael wants you on the wall." "I'm not. I can barely fight one opponent. You want me against 20? I want you watching, observing. You've got tracking skills none of us have. If they're trying something sneaky, you'll spot it before we do. Vera's voice softened slightly. This isn't a combat assignment, it's intelligence. Use your brain, not your fists. And if they breach the wall, then use your fists anyway and hope Kale's training sticks. They spent the next 2 days preparing. Every wolf in the stronghold was assigned a position, weapons checked, supplies staged. The walls reinforced. Elara's training with Kyle intensified. He pushed harder, demanded more. Each session left her bloodied and exhausted, but she kept showing up, kept pushing back. You're getting faster, he said one morning, after she'd actually managed to land a glancing blow to his ribs. But speed without strategy is just flailing. Then teach me strategy. He smiled, sharp and predatory. Watch. He demonstrated a sequence. Feint high, strike low, use the opponent's reaction against them. Made it look effortless. Elara tried to copy it. Failed. Tried again. Failed better. Your problem, Kyle said, is you're fighting like you expect to lose. Like you're just delaying the inevitable. Because usually I am. Not anymore. He moved closer. You beat Darren's emotional control. You survived Blackwood territory. You've earned every bruise, every scar, every drop of blood you've shed here. Stop fighting like someone who doesn't belong. You're here. You've proven that. Now act like it. Something shifted in Elara at those words. A straightening of her spine. A settling of weight. They went again. This time when she threw the combination, she committed to it. Didn't hold back. Didn't plan her retreat. Caught Kale in the jaw hard enough to snap his head sideways. He touched his face, worked his jaw, then grinned. There she is, he said. That's the wolf I've been waiting to see. Elara stood on the eastern wall at dawn on the third day, scanning the tree line. Beside her, Cormac, the tracker from the ill-fated supply run, did the same. See anything? He asked. No, which worries me. Why? Because if they're smart, they're not coming from the direction we're watching. She moved to the northern edge of the wall, looked down at the ravine below. That's where I'd come from. Use the terrain to hide numbers. Hit from an unexpected angle. Cormac followed her gaze, studied the ravine for a long moment, then nodded slowly. You know, he said, when you first got here, I thought you'd be dead in a week. Soft pack wolf, 5 rejections, couldn't run a mile without collapsing. So did everyone else. But you're still here, and you're thinking like a survivor, not a victim. He gestured toward the ravine. I'll tell Marcus. Have him station extra guards there. You think he'll listen? After what you pulled in Blackwood territory? Yeah, he'll listen. Marcus did better than listen. He pulled half the eastern wall defenders and repositioned them north, created overlapping fields of fire, set up backup positions, turned what should have been a weak point into a killing field. Good eye, he said to Elara when the repositioning was complete. Most wolves would have focused on the obvious approach. You looked for the smart one. I spent 5 years being overlooked, Elara said, taught me to see what others miss. Then keep looking, because something feels wrong about this whole setup. Marcus was right. When the attack came at sunset, it came from 2 directions simultaneously. A feint from the east, just enough wolves to look threatening. And the real assault from the north, exactly where Elara had predicted. But the Blackwood wolves hit prepared positions. Marcus and 30 defenders were waiting. The fight was vicious. Blackwood wolves were good, disciplined, coordinated. But they'd lost the element of surprise, and that cost them. Elara watched from her wall position, every instinct screaming to join the fight. But Kyle had been clear. She was intelligence, not infantry. Her job was to watch, to spot patterns, to call out threats the fighters might miss. She saw a group of Blackwood wolves trying to flank the main defensive position, called it out to Marcus, watched him redirect fighters to intercept, saw another group trying to scale the wall farther down, alerted the nearest defenders. They pushed the climbers back before they gained a foothold. The battle lasted 20 minutes, felt like hours. When it was over, 3 Blackwood wolves lay dead. The rest had retreated into the forest. No losses on Kyle's side. A few injuries, nothing critical. victory. But Elara couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The attack had been too straightforward, too simple for an enemy that had proven they could be cunning. She found Marcus as he was checking the wounded. "Something's wrong," she said. "We won. They retreated." "Exactly. Too easily. They sent maybe 30 wolves total. That's not an invasion force, that's a probe." Marcus's expression darkened. "You think this was a distraction?" "I think they wanted to see how we'd respond, where we'd position defenders, what our capabilities are. Which means they're planning something bigger." Elara nodded. "And now they know our defensive layout." Marcus cursed. "I need to talk to Kael." The war council that night was tense. Kael sat at the head of the table, listening as Marcus and Elara explained their theory. "So we won the battle, but gave them intelligence," Vera summarized. "Potentially," Marcus said. "Not potentially." Kael's voice was flat. "Definitely. That attack was too coordinated to be exploratory. They had a plan going in." He looked at Elara. "You said something feels wrong. Elaborate." Elara took a breath. "They attacked at sunset. Good tactical choice, harder to see, defenders tired from a full day. But they withdrew before full dark." "Why?" "They had better visibility than us in low light, should have pressed the advantage." "Maybe they didn't want the casualties," someone suggested. "They left 3 dead already. If this was about minimizing casualties, they wouldn't have attacked at all." Elara stood, moved to the map on the wall. "They wanted something specific, not victory, information." "What kind of information?" Kael asked. "Our response time, defensive positions, how fast we can redeploy." She traced the attack routes on the map. "Next time, they'll know exactly where we're strong and where we're weak." "So we change it up," Vera said. "Reposition, make their intelligence useless." "That's reactive," Elara said. "We'd be responding to their strategy instead of making them respond to ours." Kael leaned forward. "What are you suggesting?" "That we stop defending and start attacking. Take the fight to them before they can consolidate." And the room went silent. "That's insane," someone said. "We're outnumbered." "We're outnumbered here too. At least if we attack, we choose the time and place." Elara met Kael's eyes. "You said you wanted to change the equation. This changes it." Kael studied her for a long moment, then looked at Marcus. "Your assessment?" "It's risky, but she's not wrong. Defending is a losing strategy if they can keep probing until they find a weakness." Marcus paused. "The question is whether we have the intelligence to make an offensive work." "We don't," Vera said. "We don't know their defensive layout, their numbers, their—" "Then we get it," Elara interrupted. "Someone goes in, scouts their position, comes back with actionable intelligence." "That's suicide," Vera said flatly. "After tonight, they'll be watching for scouts, triple guards, heightened awareness. Whoever goes won't come back." "Not if they're looking for wolves." Elara's heart was pounding. This was insane, but it was also necessary. They'll expect scouts, trackers, fighters. They won't expect someone who knows how to be invisible. Kael's eyes narrowed. "You're volunteering." "I'm the best option. I'm small, fast. Spent 5 years learning how to go unnoticed in a community watching me constantly." She kept her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her throat. "And I have something to prove." "This isn't about proving anything," Kael said. "Maybe not to you, but to everyone in this stronghold who still sees me as the reject? Yeah, it's about proving I belong here." Vera started to object, but Kael held up a hand. "If you do this," he said to Elara, "you take backup, 2 others, non-negotiable. That increases the chance of detection. It also increases your chance of survival. And if you die on this mission, you're useless to me." His tone was harsh, but his eyes showed something else. Concern, maybe. "Choose your team. You leave at dawn." Elara chose Senna. No question there. For the second, she hesitated between several options before settling on Cormac. He was quiet, skilled, and most importantly, he trusted her judgment. They spent the night preparing. Light gear, dark clothes, weapons concealed. everything designed for stealth over confrontation. Senna pulled Elara aside an hour before dawn. "You know this is crazy, right?" Senna said. "Yeah." "And you're doing it anyway." "Yeah." Senna smiled, genuine warmth in it. "Good, because I was worried you were getting too sensible." She gripped Elara's shoulder. "We get in, we get the intel, we get out. No heroics." "Agreed." They left through the hidden western gate as the sky was just starting to lighten. Moved through terrain Elara was starting to know by heart. Every boulder, every tree, every hiding spot. The journey took most of the day. They moved slowly, carefully, checking constantly for patrols. Twice they had to hide, once from a Blackwood hunting party, once from what looked like messengers. By late afternoon, they'd reached the ridge overlooking the main Blackwood settlement. It had grown since Elara's last visit. More buildings, more wolves. The place looked like it was preparing for sustained conflict. "That's a lot of fighters," Cormac whispered. "Count them," Elara said. "Not estimates, actual numbers." They spent 2 hours doing exactly that, watching patrol rotations, counting buildings, mapping defensive positions. Cormac had brought paper and charcoal, sketched everything with quick, precise strokes. "We've got what we need," he said finally. "We should go." But Elara was studying something else. The southern buildings, the supply depot they'd burned weeks ago, had been rebuilt, and it was heavily guarded now. "They're expecting another sabotage attempt," she murmured. "Which is why we're not attempting one," Senna said firmly. "Intel only. Remember?" Elara nodded. Senna was right. They'd gotten what they came for. They started to retreat when Elara heard voices, close, too close. She gestured frantically. They all dropped flat, pressing into the rocky ground. 2 Blackwood wolves emerged from the tree line below, walking patrol, heading straight toward their position. Elara's heart hammered. If they came up to the ridge, there'd be no hiding. 3 against 2 were decent odds, but any fight would alert the entire settlement. The wolves stopped. One pointed toward something in the distance. They talked for a moment. Elara couldn't make out words, just tones. Casual. Unbothered. Then they turned and walked back the way they'd come. Elara waited until they were out of sight, counted to 100, then gestured for retreat. They moved faster now, urgency overriding caution. The sun was setting. They needed to be out of Blackwood territory before full dark, when the wolves would be at their strongest. They made it halfway back when Senna stopped suddenly. "What?" Elara whispered. "Smell that?" Elara did. Smoke. But not wood smoke. Something chemical. Wrong. "They're burning something," Cormac said. "They shouldn't investigate, should just keep moving." But Elara's instincts were screaming that this mattered. "Quick look," she said. 5 minutes. They followed the smell to a clearing, found a bonfire burning something that made Elara's stomach turn. Bodies. Wolf bodies. Burned beyond recognition, but the shapes were unmistakable. "Are those?" Senna started. "Their own dead," Cormac finished. "From the battle today." "Why burn them?" Elara asked. "Disease prevention," Senna suggested. "Or hiding casualties." "No. Something else." Elara moved closer, studying the pyre, saw something glinting in the flames, reached in quickly, grabbed it before the heat could register. A medallion, military style, not wolf pack markings, something else. "They're not just a pack," Elara said slowly. "They're organized, trained. This is a military operation." "Then we really need to leave," Cormac said urgently. "Now." They ran, made it back to stronghold territory by midnight, exhausted but alive. Kale was waiting at the gate. "Report," he said. Elara handed him the medallion and Cormac's sketches, explained what they'd seen. The numbers, the defensive positions, the burned bodies. Kael's expression grew darker with each word. "They're not raiders," he said finally. "They're an army. Someone's funding them, training them, using them to test our defenses." "Why us?" Vera asked. She'd appeared sometime during the debrief. "Because we're the strongest outcast group in the region. If they can break us, they can break anyone." Kael studied the medallion. And whoever's behind this has resources we don't. So what do we do? Elara asked. We survive, we adapt, and we make them regret choosing us as their target. He looked at the assembled council. Double training rotations? Ration supplies? Prepare for siege. They're coming with everything they have. We need to be ready. The next week was brutal. Every wolf trained until they dropped, defenses reinforced, escape routes planned. The stronghold transformed into a fortress. Elara trained harder than anyone. Morning sessions with Kael, afternoon drills with Vera, evening work with Senna's group. She barely slept, barely ate, just pushed herself past every limit. You're going to burn out, Margot warned one night, treating yet another set of training injuries. Better to burn out than die slow, Elara said. Not if burning out means you're useless when the real fight comes. She had a point, but Elara couldn't stop. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that pyre, those burned bodies. Evidence that this enemy was willing to do anything to win. She needed to be ready. The attack came on the 8th day. Not a probe this time. Not a test. A full assault. Over 100 Blackwood wolves, supported by what looked like mercenaries from other packs. They hit the walls at dawn. Multiple points simultaneously, coordinated, professional. Elara was positioned on the north wall. The first wave hit hard, wolves climbing, jumping, trying to overwhelm through sheer numbers. She fought like Kael had taught her, fast, smart, using the enemy's momentum against them. Targeting weak points, not trying to match strength for strength, took down 3 attackers in the first 5 minutes. Not kills, she wasn't that good yet, but incapacitations, enough to remove them from the fight. The battle raged for hours, the walls held, barely. Several times Blackwood wolves made it over, created breaches. Each time defenders rallied, pushed them back. Elara lost track of individual fights. Everything blurred into motion and blood and survival. She took hits, gave worse, kept fighting. When horns sounded the retreat, she couldn't believe it. The Blackwood force was withdrawing, pulling back. Did we win? Someone asked. No, Kael said. He was covered in blood. They're regrouping. This was just the opening. He was right. Over the next 3 days, the Blackwood army kept up constant pressure. Not all-out assaults, but steady harassment, raids, hit-and-run attacks, designed to wear down defenders, exhaust supplies, break morale. It was working. Wolves were getting tired, sloppy. Injuries piling up faster than Margot could treat them. On the 4th day, Elara made a decision. She found Kael in his quarters studying maps, trying to find some advantage they'd missed. I have an idea, she said. I'm listening. They're using professional tactics, siege warfare, trying to break us through attrition. She moved to the map. But they're assuming we'll fight like a traditional pack, defend our territory, protect our walls. We are defending our territory. What if we didn't? Elara's hand traced a route on the map. What if we took half our fighters, left a skeleton crew to hold the walls, and hit their supply lines? Their camp has to be somewhere close. Cut off their support, they can't sustain this pressure. Kael stared at the map. That's a huge risk. If they realize what we're doing and hit the walls with everything, the skeleton crew won't hold. But if we do nothing, they'll grind us down anyway. At least this gives us initiative. He was quiet for a long moment, then nodded. All right, we try it your way. He called for Vera and Marcus. Assemble a strike team, 50 fighters. We leave tonight. The mission was straightforward but dangerous. Move fast, hit the supply camp, destroy what they could, retreat before the main force could respond. Elara went with them. Not because she was the best fighter. She wasn't. But because this was her plan. If it failed, she needed to own that. They moved through darkness, skirting Blackwood patrols. Found the supply camp 5 miles from the stronghold. It was lightly defended. Most of their force was committed to the siege. Maybe 20 guards total. Marcus led the assault, fast and brutal. They hit the guards hard, then scattered through the camp with torches and oil. Elara found the medical supplies, remembered Kael's lessons. Fire burned medicine as easily as wood. She lit it all. The camp erupted in flames. Blackwood wolves scrambled to respond, but it was too late. Food, weapons, medicine, shelter, all of it burning. They retreated into the darkness as horns sounded alarm across the valley, made it back to the stronghold by dawn to find the walls still standing. The siege broke 2 days later. The Blackwood army, starving and undersupplied, couldn't maintain pressure. They withdrew, defeated not through strength but strategy. That night, the stronghold celebrated, food and drink and relief. But Kyle pulled Elara aside. "You saved us," he said simply. "We saved us. Everyone who fought, your plan, your strategy. Without it, we'd be dead or scattered." He paused. "The stronghold needs a new second in command. Vera's recommending you." Elara stared. "I've been here 3 months." "And in 3 months, you've gone from someone who couldn't run a mile to someone who just won a war." He smiled slightly. "Time doesn't matter. Results do. And your results speak for themselves." She wanted to say she wasn't ready, but she'd been saying that for months, and somehow she kept doing things everyone said were impossible. "All right," she said. "I'll do it." Word spread fast. The next morning, when Elara walked into the mess hall, wolves stood, acknowledged her. Not the reject anymore, not the charity case. A leader. It felt surreal. Wrong, somehow. Like she'd skipped steps that should have taken years. But Senna said it best when they talked that afternoon. You didn't skip steps. You just climbed faster than anyone expected, including yourself. Maybe she was right. Elara stood on the wall that evening, looking out at the territory they'd defended. The scars of battle were everywhere, scorched earth, damaged walls, fresh graves. But they'd survived, and she'd been part of that survival. Not chosen, not granted permission. She'd earned it. Every drop of blood, every bruise, every moment she'd wanted to quit but didn't. Kael joined her after a while. "Thinking about what comes next?" he asked. "Thinking about what came before. How different I am from who I was. You were always this person. You just needed the right circumstances to become her." Elara looked at him. "Thank you for seeing that when no one else did. I saw potential. You did the work." He turned to leave, then paused. "And Elara, your old pack, they're going to hear about this, about what you've become. When they do, they'll come looking." "Let them come." Kael smiled. "Good answer." He left her alone with the stars and her thoughts and the knowledge that everything was about to change again. But this time, she was ready. The messenger arrived 3 weeks later. Elara was in the training pit with a group of new recruits, outcasts and rejects who'd heard about Kael's stronghold and what it represented. Word had spread fast after the Blackwood victory. Suddenly, wolves who'd been cast aside by their packs had somewhere to go, someone to follow. She was demonstrating a defensive sequence when Vera appeared at the pit's edge. "We've got visitors," Vera said. Her tone was careful, neutral. "Your old pack." The practice weapon slipped from Elara's hands. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. "How many?" she managed. "5, including your parents and the pack elder." Of course they'd come now that she was someone worth acknowledging. "Where's Kael?" "Meeting them in the main hall. Wants you there." Elara climbed out of the pit. Her hands were shaking slightly. She clenched them into fists, forced them steady. Senna caught her arm as she passed. "You don't have to do this." "Yeah, I do." The walk to the main hall felt like walking to an execution. Every step heavy, every breath deliberate. She could turn around, could let Kael handle this, send them away without ever having to see their faces again. But that would be running. And she was done running. The hall was cold despite the fire burning in the central hearth. Kael stood at the head of the room, arms crossed, expression unreadable. 5 wolves stood opposite him, all in formal pack attire, all looking uncomfortable. Elara recognized them immediately. Elder Tormund, looking older than she remembered. Her mother, Iris, still beautiful in that cold, untouchable way. Her father, Marcus, not her Marcus, her trainer Marcus, but the man who'd shared her name and refused to defend her. Her sister Naya, now mated judging by the mark on her neck. And Matthias, the wolf who'd chosen Sarah Moss over her at that final claiming ceremony. They all turned when she entered. She watched their expressions shift. Shock, confusion, calculation. Her mother's eyes widened. Elara? That's what they call me here, too. Elara moved to stand beside Kael, deliberately positioned herself as his equal, not his subordinate. What do you want? Tormund cleared his throat. We've heard reports about this stronghold, about the victory against the Blackwood Pack. He paused. About you. And? We came to see if the reports were true. Elara felt Kael's presence beside her, steady, solid, an anchor. They're true, she said. I'm second in command here. I helped plan the defense that broke the Blackwood siege. What else do you want to know? Her father, Marcus, she had to stop thinking of him as father, stepped forward. We came to bring you home. The words hung in the air like poison. Home, Elara repeated slowly. The place that cast me out? That renounced me? That told me I was worth less than nothing? We were wrong, Iris said. Her voice was tight, controlled. We acted, hastily. We didn't see your potential. No, you didn't see my value until someone else did. Elara's voice was cold. That's not the same thing. Naya spoke for the first time. The pack needs you, Elara. We're struggling. Hunters are having trouble bringing in game. Other packs are pressing our borders. We need strong leadership. You have leadership. You have Elder Tormund. You have the Pack Council. We need what you've built here, Matthias said. Your strategy, your strength. If you came back, brought your experience, no. The word cut through the hall like a blade. No? Tormund's voice rose. You would abandon your pack in their time of need? You abandoned me first. Elara stepped forward. I stood in that claiming circle 5 times. 5 times I was rejected, and not one of you, not one, stepped forward to defend me, to claim me, to say I had value beyond what others saw. We're trying to make amends, Iris said, by asking me to fix your problems, by expecting me to come running back now that I'm useful. Elara shook her head. That's not amends, that's exploitation. We're offering you a place of honor, Tormund said. A position on the council, recognition, everything you wanted. I wanted to belong, to be seen, to matter. Elara's voice was steady. I have that here, with wolves who earned their worth the same way I did, through blood and pain and refusing to quit. You're offering me exactly what you think I wanted 5 rejections ago. You're years too late. Her mother's composure cracked slightly. You're my daughter. You renounced me, remember? In front of the entire pack, to protect your status. Elara met her mother's eyes. You made your choice. I'm making mine. Kael had been silent through the entire exchange. Now he spoke, voice low and dangerous. You've heard her answer. I suggest you accept it and leave. Tormund's face reddened. This is pack business. Not anymore. She's not your pack. She's mine. Kael's tone was absolute. And in my territory, I decide who stays and who goes. You're going. We could force the issue, Matthias said, trying to sound threatening and failing. You could try. Kael smiled, cold and sharp. But I've got 50 fighters who'd love the practice, and they're all loyal to Elara. So ask yourself, is forcing the issue worth bleeding for? The delegation exchanged glances, uncertainty clear on their faces. There is one thing, Elara said quietly. They all looked at her. My sister, Naya. How is she really? Naya blinked, seemed surprised to be addressed directly. I'm mated to Garrett from the southern families. We're expecting. Congratulations. Elara meant it. Whatever else had happened, Naya had been a child when Elara was exiled. She'd made the safe choice, the only choice available to her. I hope you're happy. I am. I just wish... Naya stopped, started again. I should have said something at the ceremony. I was scared. I know. I was scared too. Elara's voice softened. Take care of yourself. Take care of your pup. That's all I want for you. Naya's eyes were wet. Will I ever see you again? Maybe. If you need me, really need me, not because the pack demands it, send word. I'll come. Elara looked at the others. But only for her. The rest of you can handle your own problems. Tormund drew himself up. You're making a mistake. Pack bonds are sacred. Then you shouldn't have broken ours. Elara turned her back on them. Deliberate. Final. Vera will show you out. Vera appeared as if summoned. The delegation had no choice but to follow her. As they filed out, Elara heard her mother try one last time. Elara, please. Goodbye, Iris. Not mother, not anymore. The door closed behind them. Silence filled the hall. Elara stood very still, afraid that if she moved, something inside her would shatter. Then Kael's hand landed on her shoulder, solid, grounding. You all right? He asked. I don't know. Her voice was smaller than she wanted. I thought it would feel better, telling them no, watching them realize I don't need them anymore. But it just feels empty, like I won something that doesn't matter. It matters. Kael turned her to face him. You just proved you're not the person they tried to make you, that you've grown past their ability to define you. That matters more than you realize. Maybe he was right. Maybe the hollowness was just shock, or grief for a family that had never really existed except in her desperate hopes. Senna burst into the hall, followed by several others. Are they gone? They're gone, Elara confirmed. Good, because you need to hear this. Senna was breathless, excited. We've got 3 more groups requesting to join the stronghold. 27 wolves total, all rejects, all heard what you did and want to be part of it. Elara blinked. 27? And that's just this week. Word's spreading. You're becoming a symbol. Senna grinned. The reject who became a leader. It's powerful. I'm not a symbol. I'm just someone who survived what should have killed you. Someone who turned exile into opportunity. Someone who proved the system wrong. Kael's voice was firm. That's exactly what a symbol is. Over the next month, the stronghold transformed. The influx of new wolves brought fresh energy, new skills, different perspectives. Elara found herself not just training fighters, but building something larger. A community. A real one. She established new protocols. Every newcomer got evaluated not just for fighting ability, but for other skills. Hunting, tracking, medicine, crafting, building. They needed all of it. Created council meetings where decisions were debated, not dictated. Where even the newest arrival could voice concerns. Implemented rotating leadership in training sessions so wolves learned from each other, not just from designated teachers. Kael watched it all with something that might have been pride. You're changing this place, he said one evening. They were on the wall watching the sunset paint the valley gold. We built it on survival. That's good for crisis. But if we want to last, we need more than that. What do we need? Purpose, connection, something worth protecting beyond just territory and supplies. She looked at him. We need to be what our old packs should have been. A place where worth isn't assigned, it's recognized. That's ambitious. So was surviving the Blackwood siege. We did that too. He smiled. Yes, we did. The peace lasted 2 months. Then scouts reported movement from the east. Not Blackwood. They'd retreated to lick their wounds and rebuild. Someone new. A coalition. 5 packs that had banded together, concerned about the growing power of Kael's stronghold, concerned about the message it sent to their own rejected wolves. They sent an envoy, demanded the stronghold disband, called it a threat to pack stability. Kael's response was simple. No. The coalition gave them 2 weeks to reconsider. Then attacked. But this wasn't like the Blackwood siege. This was different. The coalition expected to find a stronghold of desperate outcasts barely holding together. Instead, they found an organized, disciplined force that had been training for exactly this scenario. Elara led the defense personally, not because she was the best fighter, Vera still had her beat there, but because the wolves trusted her, followed her, believed in her. She positioned forces based on the coalition's approach patterns, anticipated their strategies, turned their numerical advantage against them by forcing them into terrain that negated it. The battle lasted 3 days. Brutal. Exhausting. But when it was over, the coalition was retreating, broken, defeated. Standing on the wall, watching them go, Elara felt something shift inside her. Not triumph, something deeper, certainty. This was where she belonged. Not because someone had chosen her, because she'd chosen it, built it, bled for it. The victory celebration that night was different from previous ones. There was joy, yes, but also something more profound. Recognition that they'd become something unprecedented. A pack built not on bloodlines or tradition, but on choice, on proving yourself through action rather than birth. Kale called for silence, stood before the assembled stronghold. "We've won another battle," he said, "but more importantly, we've proven something. That strength doesn't come from tradition or hierarchy. It comes from will, from the decision to stand up every time you're knocked down, from refusing to accept what others say you are and becoming what you choose to be." Cheers erupted. Elara found herself pulled into hugs, congratulations, acknowledgement. Later, when things had quieted, she found Kyle alone in his quarters. "You wanted to see me?" she asked. "Sit." She did, waited while he poured 2 drinks, handed her one. "I'm stepping down," he said. Elara nearly dropped the glass. "What?" "Not immediately, not completely, but I'm making you primary alpha. I'll stay on as advisor, military commander when needed. But day-to-day leadership, that's yours now." "Kael, I can't." "Yes, you can. You already are." He sat across from her. "This stronghold works because of what you've built, the structure, the community, the vision. That's not me. That's you. You built this place. I built a fortress for outcasts to survive in. You're building something they can thrive in. There's a difference." He drank. "And more importantly, they follow you. Not because I tell them to, because they want to. That's real leadership." "What if I fail?" "Then you fail. Pick yourself up. Try again. Same as always." He smiled slightly. "You've been doing that since you got here. Why stop now?" She wanted to argue, to list all the reasons this was insane. But looking at Kael's face, she saw he'd already made the decision. This wasn't a discussion. It was notification. "All right," she said finally. "I'll do it." "I know you will." He raised his glass. To the wolf who turned rejection into revolution. They drank. That night, Elara couldn't sleep. Too much spinning in her head. Too many what-ifs and possibilities and fears. She found herself in the courtyard, watching the stars. Senna appeared beside her eventually. "Heard the news. That I'm apparently in charge now. That you're finally getting the recognition you deserve." Senna nudged her. "How does it feel?" "Terrifying, overwhelming, like I'm about to screw up spectacularly." "So, normal leadership emotions." Elara laughed despite herself. "When did you get wise?" "Always was. You were just too busy surviving to notice." Senna's expression grew serious. "You know what you've done, right? Not just here, everywhere. Every pack that's heard about this place, about you, has wolves questioning why rejection is permanent, why worth has to be assigned by someone else. You've changed the conversation. I just wanted to survive. You did more than survive, you thrived. And in doing so, you showed everyone like us that exile isn't an ending. It's a chance to become something better." Maybe that was true. Maybe her story mattered beyond just herself. Or maybe she was just a wolf who'd gotten lucky, who'd found the right place at the right time with the right people. Either way, she was here, and she had work to do. The formal transfer of leadership happened a week later. Simple ceremony. Kael handed her the Alpha token, a carved stone that had marked leadership for generations. "Lead them well," he said. "I'll try. You'll succeed. Because failure isn't an option for you, never has been." The stronghold wolves howled their approval. Recognition. Acceptance. Elara stood before them, scarred, imperfect, still learning, and realized something profound. She'd spent 5 years waiting to be chosen, waiting for someone to see her worth. But worth wasn't something granted. It was something you proved. Every day. Through choices and actions and the refusal to accept limitations others tried to impose. Her old pack had rejected her 5 times, called her worthless, cast her out, and in doing so they'd freed her to become something they could never have imagined. Not a reject, not an outcast, a leader, a builder, a symbol of what happened when you refuse to accept someone else's judgment of your value. 2 months after taking full leadership, Elara received an unexpected visitor. Elder Tormund, alone this time, looking older, tired. "I didn't come to ask you to return," he said when she met him at the gate. "Then why did you come?" "To apologize. Properly." He looked at her directly. "What we did to you, what I allowed to happen, was wrong. I justified it as tradition, as pack law, but it was cruelty disguised as structure." Elara said nothing, just waited. "The pack is struggling," Tormund continued, "as Naya told you, but we won't ask for your help, won't demand your loyalty. You owe us nothing." He paused. "But I needed to say this. Needed you to know that I see now what I was blind to then. You were never the problem. The system was. And I upheld that system. Why tell me this? Because you deserve to hear it. And because—" He looked around at the stronghold, at the wolves training, building, living. "Because you've created something remarkable here, something that challenges everything I thought I knew about packs and belonging. And I wanted to witness it, to understand what's possible when we stop defining worth by tradition and start recognizing it in action." Elara studied him, looking for deception, finding only genuine regret. "You can stay for 3 days," she said finally. "Observe, learn, then go back to your pack and figure out if you want to change or if you want to keep doing things the same way. And if we choose to change, then maybe we can talk about alliance, mutual support, but not dependency, not rescue. Partnership between equals or nothing." Tormund nodded slowly. "That's fair, more than fair." He stayed the 3 days, watched training sessions, attended council meetings, saw how decisions were made, how conflicts were resolved, how wolves who'd been rejected and cast aside had built something functional and powerful. On the 3rd day, he found Elara on the wall. "I'm going back," he said. "Going to propose reforms. It won't be easy. Tradition is deeply rooted. Change never is." "No, but it's necessary. You've proven that." He hesitated. "Your mother asked me to tell you something. She knows she has no right to your forgiveness, but she wants you to know she's proud of you, of what you've become despite everything she did wrong." Elara felt something twist in her chest. Not forgiveness, not quite, but something softer than the anger she'd carried. Tell her I'm not ready to reconnect, but I don't hate her. That's the best I can offer right now." "I'll tell her." Tormund turned to leave, then paused. "Your sister's pup was born last week. A girl. They named her Elara." He left before she could respond. Elara stood on the wall long after he'd gone, watching the sun set over the territory she now led. A niece, named after her, after the reject, the outcast, the wolf who wasn't supposed to matter. Maybe that was its own kind of victory. That night she gathered the senior leadership, Vera, Senna, Cormac, and a few others who'd proven themselves indispensable. "I've been thinking," she said, "about what we are, what we're becoming." "A stronghold," Vera said. "More than that. We're a movement, a proof of concept." Elara looked at each of them. Other packs are watching, some with fear, some with hope. And there are outcasts everywhere, wolves who've been rejected, exiled, told they're worthless. What if we reached out to them, offered not just sanctuary, but partnership? "You want to expand?" Senna asked. "I want to build a network, connected strongholds, each autonomous but allied, each proving that rejection doesn't have to be an ending." She paused. "I want to change the system that created us, not through force, through example." "That's ambitious," Cormac said. "Dangerous, too. The traditional packs won't like it. They already don't like it. At least this way, we're building something instead of just defending what we have." Vera leaned back, considering. "You're talking about fundamentally reshaping how wolf society works." "Yeah, I am." "Good," Vera grinned. "About time someone did." Over the next year, the network grew. 3 more strongholds established. Connections forged with reform-minded packs willing to reconsider how they handled outcasts. Not everyone joined, not everyone believed, but enough did that change became inevitable. Elara split her time between managing her own stronghold and traveling to help others establish theirs. It was exhausting, overwhelming. Sometimes she wanted to quit, to hand it off to someone else, but then she'd meet another wolf with a story like hers, another reject who'd been told they were worthless, who'd survived anyway, and she'd remember why this mattered. One evening, she returned to her stronghold to find Kael waiting. "You look tired," he said. "I am tired, tired but satisfied." She sat beside him. "Is this what leadership always feels like? Like you're simultaneously accomplishing everything and nothing?" "Pretty much," he smiled. "But you're handling it better than most, better than I did. You built this place from nothing. I built a fortress. You're building a future." He looked at her seriously. "I'm proud of you. In case I haven't said that enough." "You've said it." "Good, because it's true." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. "Do you ever regret it?" Elara asked finally. "Bringing me here that first day? I was half dead, completely useless. You could have just left me." "Never. Not once." Kael's voice was firm. "You want to know what I saw that day? Not a reject, not a victim. I saw someone who'd been beaten down 5 times and was still walking, still trying. That's the kind of person who changes the world. I'm not changing the world. I'm just... You're reshaping how an entire society thinks about worth and belonging. That's changing the world." He stood. "Now get some rest. Tomorrow you've got that meeting with the Eastern Coalition, and they're going to be difficult." He was right. They were difficult. But Elara had learned how to handle difficult. With patience, with strategy, with the absolute certainty that she belonged at every table she sat at. Not because someone had given her permission, because she'd earned her place through blood and pain and refusing to quit. 3 years after arriving at the stronghold half dead and completely broken, Elara stood before a gathering of 50 packs, some traditional, some reformed, some new creations built on the model she'd pioneered. They'd come to establish formal protocols for handling rejected wolves, to create systems that offered second chances instead of exile. It wasn't perfect. Many packs refused to participate, held tight to tradition. But enough had changed that rejection was no longer automatic, no longer final. Wolves had options now, pathways to worth that didn't depend on a single ceremony or someone else's approval. Standing before the assembly, Elara thought about the wolf she'd been, the one who'd stood in that claiming circle hoping desperately that someone, anyone, would choose her. That wolf was gone, transformed into someone who didn't need to be chosen because she'd learned to choose herself. "We're not here to destroy tradition," she told the assembly. "We're here to expand it, to recognize that worth comes in many forms. That rejection isn't always a judgment on the wolf. Sometimes it's a failure of the system to see clearly." She spoke for an hour, laying out proposals, answering challenges, building consensus. When it was done, 37 packs had signed the accord, agreed to reform. It wasn't everyone, but it was a start. That night, Elara walked the walls of her stronghold one last time before heading to bed. The compound had grown. New buildings, new faces, new stories of survival and transformation. Senna found her there. "Can't sleep? Just thinking about how strange life is. 3 years ago, I was nothing. Now I'm here, leading, building, changing things. You were never nothing. You just thought you were." Senna leaned against the wall. "And for what it's worth, I'm glad you're here. Glad you didn't give up in that forest." "Me too." They stood together, watching the stars, and Elara felt something settle in her chest. Peace. Not the absence of conflict. There would always be challenges, but the deep, fundamental knowledge that she was exactly where she belonged. She'd been rejected 5 times, cast out, told she was worthless. And she'd used that rejection to build something unprecedented. A place where outcasts became leaders. Where survival transformed into strength. Where the broken pieces of unwanted wolves came together to create something whole. She wasn't a reject anymore. Wasn't defined by what others had refused to see in her. She was Elara, leader, builder. Proof that worth wasn't assigned. It was claimed, and she was just getting started. The years ahead would bring new challenges, new conflicts, new wolves needing sanctuary and second chances. But she'd faced them the same way she'd faced everything since that first brutal morning in Kael's training pit. With determination, with strategy, with the absolute refusal to accept anyone else's limitations. She'd stopped waiting to be chosen, and in doing so, had become someone others chose to follow. Not because she was perfect, but because she was real, scarred, imperfect, human in all the ways that mattered. A leader forged in rejection and hardened by survival. A queen who'd earned her crown through blood and pain and the simple, profound act of refusing to quit. The stronghold below her was quiet now, wolves sleeping, preparing for tomorrow's challenges. Elara took one last look at the stars, then headed down from the wall. There was work to do. There was always work to do, but for the first time in her life, she was exactly where she wanted to be. Doing exactly what she was meant to do. Not because fate had chosen it, but because she had. And that made all the difference.